A barren hilltop lay under the cold glow of the moon. The night split by sporadic gunfire and the mournful howl of the wind. The SEAL team's SOS calls went out again and again, yet only silence answered until a calm, measured female voice broke through the static on their radios. "I've got your coordinates. Hold your position." Someone in the group murmured almost in disbelief. "Is that her?" The pause that followed felt like the world holding its breath. Have you ever seen someone turn darkness itself into a shield between life and death? Echo 7 had been in these remote mountain valleys for 3 relentless days. What should have been a straightforward extraction turned into a nightmare when their support helicopter's engine failed just 3 clicks from the landing zone. Lieutenant Ryan Mercer crouched behind a scarred boulder, scanning the terrain through night vision goggles. The land was merciless, jagged rock, sparse vegetation, and long sightlines that gave a lethal advantage to anyone in higher ground. His foreman team was trapped in a shallow depression cover so thin it was barely worth the word, with elevated positions looming all around. "Contact front." Petty Officer Dana Brooks' voice cut over comms just as muzzle flashes lit up the ridgeline above. The enemy had locked in on them. A heavy fog began spilling into the valley like a living thing, swallowing visibility until they could barely see a few meters ahead. Now the weather had turned against them. Dense mist, numbing cold, and a darkness so complete it devoured even the glow of their infrared strobes. Mercer's mind ran through options, but each one ended the same. No air support, no quick reaction force. Their exit was blocked, and hostile fighters were tightening the news from every direction. In 14 years of special operations, he'd been in bad situations, but this one felt different. Final. "Anyone remember that story from Bragg?" Petty Officer Luis Vega whispered, pressing himself tighter against the rock as bullets cracked overhead. "The ghost sniper who disappeared after that classified op." Eyes on the now Vega, Mercer snapped. But in truth, he knew exactly what his teammate was thinking. Every operator had heard the rumors about a woman who had pulled off impossible shots, saved entire units from annihilation, and then vanished from all military records as if she'd never existed. Some wrote it off as a barracks legend, a tale kept alive for comfort's sake, but a few swore they had fought alongside her. Brooks pressed her face to her rifle scope, scanning the haze. "Movement eastern slope," she reported. "They're flanking us." The fight was turning fast. Mercer counted 8 confirmed enemy positions, with more muzzle flashes appearing in the gloom every couple of minutes. Outnumbered, outgunned, and running low on ammo. He knew the unspoken doubt some in special operations still carried about women in combat, questions about strength, composure under extreme fire, and whether they could face the raw brutality of close-quarter battle. He'd never subscribed to that thinking. He'd served beside women tougher than steel and sharper than any machine. Still, with death closing in and options running out, even certainty could flicker. The radio hissed and fell silent. Mercer keyed the mic. Any station, this is Echo 7 Alpha, requesting immediate assistance. Grid 34.72551 north, 694384 east, taking heavy fire. Need extraction or fire support now?" Nothing. He switched frequencies. Broken arrow. Broken arrow. Echo 7 Alpha is compromised. Repeat, compromised. The dead air that followed was louder than the gunfire. Vega slumped against the rock beside him. "Sir, maybe we should think about finishing the mission. Nothing else." Mercer cut him off, though the thought knotted him. Had they already lost? The fog pressed in thicker, heavy with a bite of gunpowder and the metallic tang of fear. Somewhere in the black void beyond their perimeter, enemy fighters were quietly aligning for what would be their final push. Mercer shut his eyes briefly, murmuring the prayers he learned as a boy in Silver Creek. When he opened them again, the night felt even heavier, as if it had swallowed every trace of light. That's when it came, a voice low and steady, utterly calm in the middle of chaos. A woman's voice that sliced through the static like a razor through silk. "Echo 7 Alpha, this is Overwatch. I have your position. Hold fast." The 4 SEALs froze where they were, weapons still aimed outward, but for the first time in hours a thin current of hope sparked. Could it be? Could the legend actually be real? The voice spoke again, clinical and precise. "Echo 7 Alpha, hostiles at bearing 045, range 400 Mauler. Elevated position behind the split boulder. Secondary group at bearing 315 using the dead tree for cover." Mercer's senses sharpened instantly. Whoever she was spotting details his team couldn't pick up, even with night vision. "It was impossible unless copy Overwatch," he answered cautiously. "What's your position?" Northeast Ridge, roughly 1,800 ballers from your location. I've got thermal imaging and clean sightlines to your perimeter. At 800-meter, Mercer did the math in his head, well past the effective range for most sniper systems, and in this weather, it should have been unthinkable. The fog alone should have rendered such shooting nearly impossible. Brooks keyed her mic. Overwatch. How do we know you're friendly? The pause that followed was brief but loaded, because if I weren't, you'd already be dead somehow. The bluntness was more comforting than any reassurance. Echo 7 Alpha. The voice continued. You're going to move in stages. Brooks, you bound northeast 20 meters to the cluster of rocks shaped like a horseshoe. Mercer, you'll give covering fire. On my mark, Mercer hesitated. Taking orders from an unidentified operator broke every protocol in the book, but protocol hadn't kept them alive so far. He dropped his voice to Vega. Gotch. Vega's scope stayed fixed on the terrain. Sir, every position she called out, I can see the muzzle flashes now. She's dead on. The radio came alive again. Movement on the western slope. They're closing to flank you for minutes until crossfire. For minutes. Decision made. Overwatch, we're on your call. Stand by. 30 long seconds passed. Mercer could hear his own heartbeat. The shallow breathing of his men and the faint crunch of boots on rock as enemy fighters moved unseen through the dark. Then crack. A single sharp rifle report ripped across the valley, followed by shouts from the west. One flanking position went dead. Brooks, move now, came the order. Brooks bolted across the exposed ground, sliding in behind the horseshoe rocks just as automatic fire tore through where she'd been. Mercer and Vega poured suppressive fire toward the ridge, tracer rounds slicing red arcs through the mist. Excellent execution, the voice said evenly. Next bound Vega to the fallen log 15 meters south of Brooks' position. Another shot cracked from an entirely different angle, dropping a second hostile. How the hell is she shifting so fast? Vega muttered, already poised to sprint. Mercer was starting to see the brilliance at work. Overwatch wasn't just shooting. She was conducting a deadly choreography of movement and fire using terrain features his team couldn't even see, striking from firing positions that shouldn't have been possible. Vega, go. The pattern repeated: sprint, dive, cover, suppress. Each bound pushed them into stronger positions while their unseen guardian erased threats with uncanny precision. By the third move, Mercer saw it clearly. She was carving them corridors of survival, removing the exact enemies that would have cut them down mid-on. Every shot was deliberate, chosen for its tactical value, and the hit dealt to enemy morale. Sir, Brooks breathed in her voice. Whoever she is, she's operating on another level. Mercer couldn't argue. In 15 years of special operations, he worked with some of the best marksmen alive. This was something else entirely. This was artistry. Final movement, the voice said. All units bound to the stone wall 200 meter northeast. Occupies on you the whole way. Copy, Overwatch, Mercer replied and paused. And thank you. Mercer's voice carried the weight of what he meant, but the reply came back quick, firm and unyielding. Save the gratitude until you're home safe. As they readied for the last push, Mercer couldn't shake the sense that they were in the middle of something that would one day be legend. This was the kind of night whispered about in team rooms years later. The night of ghosts that saved Echo 7. Their movement was seamless, bounding in pairs, while their unseen protector dismantled threats with almost machine-like efficiency. Each crack of her rifle came from a different direction, so precise and varied it felt like an entire sniper team had materialized out of the fog. By the time they slid in behind the stone wall, the enemy guns had gone silent. Echo 7 Alpha, this is Overwatch. Her voice came again, measured and clear. You have clean egress routes to the north and east. Hostile forces are falling back to regroup. Extraction window 45 minutes. Mercer glanced at his team. They were scraped, chilled to the bone, running on fumes, but alive. Overwatch, we owe you our lives. The voice softened but carried a weight all its own. You owe me nothing. Just make it back to your families. That note in her tone loss, carried like an old wound, told Mercer she was carrying her own ghosts. Will we see you at extraction? Silence, then the faintest trace of a smile in her words. Ghosts don't usually attend parties, Echo 7. And just like that, she was gone, leaving them alone, but this time with hope instead of dread. Up on the northeast ridge, Harper Voss adjusted her scope, scanning through the swirling fog. The SEALs had bought themselves a sliver of safety, but through her thermal optics she could see trouble massing in the distance. The fight wasn't over. The enemy was regrouping, pulling in reinforcements, planning a three-pronged hit that could crush even the Stonewall defense. 15 distinct heat signatures moved in formation, disciplined, trained, and undeterred despite losing 6 men to her rifle. This wasn't some scattered militia. This was a coordinated military strike. She cradled her M2010, a custom-built tool that felt less like a weapon and more like an extension of her own body, its unofficial modifications known to no manual. In her earpiece, Echo 7's chatter filtered through, setting up defensive lines, counting ammo, bracing for what they assumed would be a routine hold until the bird arrived. They had no idea what was about to hit them. Harper keyed her mic, Echo 7 Alpha, 30 hostiles converging from 3 directions. This is about to get intense. Mercer's voice came back steady but tight. Copy, Overwatch. Can you keep up support? That's the plan. What she didn't tell them was the truth, that she'd be pushing the limits of human marksmanship in pitch darkness through fog against moving targets, who now knew there was a sniper and would be hunting her back. The first shot had to be perfect. Target 1, enemy sniper, Western Ridge, 2100 meters. Skilled, camouflaged, shifting positions between shots to stay untouchable. Yet his barrel's faint heat betrayed him. Harper slowed her breathing, heartbeat sinking to her rhythm. Wind 8 mph, gusting to 12, temp 34 Gauldern. Barometric pressure falling. Calculations ran in her mind as naturally as breathing, elevation, windage lead for a slow lateral movement. The M2010 whispered once. Through the scope, she saw the heat signature collapse. 1 down, target 2, machine gun team on the southern slope, range 1,147 Miller. The gunner was mostly hidden, showing only glimpses as he set up. Harper waited. Patience was as lethal as any bullet until he stepped out to adjust the tripod. 1 shot, 1 less threat to rip Echo 7 apart. Now they knew, and panic started to spread. Thermal shapes bunched closer, abandoning spacing. Target 3, the commander identifiable by his position and how others pivoted around him. Remove him and the attack would unravel. The shot had to pass through an 18-in gap between boulders, accounting for drop over 2,234 meters and a wind that had shifted again. The rifle cracked. The commander fell. The effect was instant. Formations broke. Movements grew erratic. But Harper wasn't done. Target 4, a spotter with night vision gear sweeping the ridge for her position. If he found her, the tables would turn and she'd become the prey. Range 1923 meters. He moved erratically, glassing the terrain with binoculars, never staying still long enough to be an easy mark. Harper waited for that single frozen instant when focus locked him in place, then fired. Target 5, a demolition specialist lugging what looked like an explosive device, a direct threat to Echo 7's hard-won defensive line. 1 round dropped him before he could get close. Target 6, a comms man with a radio pack. Severing his link would cut off coordination with any additional forces still in the area. Each kill demanded different math angles, wind shifts, timing. Yet the M2010 obeyed flawlessly. Every muscle in Harper's body working from memory, honed in battles no one would ever read about. By the 8th confirmed hit, the fight was over. The rest melted into the fog, abandoning their dead, their wounded, and their gear, unwilling to engage an unseen hand of death. Through her scope, Harper saw Echo 7's heat signatures ease as the gunfire stopped. They'd make it. They'd go home to families who'd never know how close death had come. She started breaking down her hide, stripping the rifle and packing gear for her own exfil. The job was done, but as always, victory brought no thrill. Only that hollow quiet that seeped in when the adrenaline drained away. 8 kills, 4 lives saved. Just another night in a war that never ends. She keyed her mic once more. Echo 7 Alpha, you have clear egress to extraction. Stay safe. Mercer's voice came back weighted with gratitude. Overwatch, we don't know who you are, but she'd already cut comms before he could finish. Some conversations didn't need to happen. Some deaths didn't need to be spoken aloud. In the distance, she saw the faint lights of the inbound Hello Echo 7s took it home. Harper Voss shouldered her pack and faded into the darkness again, a ghost returning to the shadows where legends belong. By dawn, the mountains burned gold and crimson as the extraction bird touched down on a rough. Echo 7 had kept security through the last hours of darkness, but no more enemy contact came. Their phantom ally had cleared the valley so completely that even the wildlife had returned. Mercer oversaw the gear loadout while his team got ready to board, each man bearing the weight of survival and the knowledge they had been part of something extraordinary. Sir Brooks said, stepping up and holding something in her palm. Found this about 50 m from our position. Mercer took the small silver and black patch. Its design a coiled viper with wings. No unit name, no official mark. But to anyone in special operations, it meant one thing. Ghost Division operators outside the chain of command. Ghosts whose missions lived in classified shadows. She was here, Vega said quietly. Right here with us. Mercer turned the patch over. The detail was flawless. The edges worn. The colors faded from years of use. This wasn't a keepsake. It was the real thing. Load up. The crew chief shouted over the rotors. Weather is closing in. As they boarded, Mercer took one last look at the battleground. In daylight, the ridges and rocks looked almost innocent, hiding all trace of the chaos that had raged just hours earlier. But his thermal recordings told the truth. 9 confirmed kills, each from impossible distances under conditions no sane marksman would attempt. Think we'll see her again? Brooks asked as the helicopter lifted off. Mercer slid the patch into his vest. Ghosts don't make repeat appearances, Vega added quietly, but they leave signs, proof they were there when it counted. The flight back to Red Haven Airfield passed in thoughtful silence. Each man processed the night differently, but all of them knew they'd been under the protection of someone operating far beyond ordinary human limits. Back at Red Haven Airfield, Mercer filed his preliminary report with careful, deliberate vagueness. Unknown friendly forces provided precision fire support during contact with hostile elements. A technically accurate account that revealed nothing, which could compromise operational security or the safety of their mysterious ally. The intel officer who debriefed him arched a brow at the thin details but didn't press. Some stories were better left untold, especially when they involved operators who officially had never existed. That night, alone in the team quarters, Mercer sat under the glow of a desk lamp, turning the worn Viper patch over in his hands. He'd been making quiet inquiries, reaching out to old contacts, pulling on threads through the special operations grapevine. A single name surfaced in hushed tones, never in official files. Harper Vos, a sniper of near-mythic skill, gone from the records as if erased. Some swore she'd been killed overseas. Others claimed she'd been discharged under classified orders. A few insisted they'd fought beside her, describing marksmanship that defied belief and a tactical mind always several moves ahead of the battlefield. Tonight, Mercer believed them all. He powered up his secure laptop, composing a message to an email address that technically didn't exist, routed through servers that technically weren't online. To the Guardian Angel on grid 34.7251 to 69.4384. 4384 for men went home to their families because of your skill and courage. We know we can never repay that debt, but we want you to know it won't be forgotten. If you're still out there, still watching over those who need Guardian Angels, I hope you find the peace you've earned. Sierra Echo 7 Alpha. He hit send, knowing it would vanish into the digital void, but sometimes the void answered back. 3 days later, a reply appeared in his secure inbox. No routing, no sender ID, just 2 words, stay safe. From then on, the Viper patch stayed on his kit for the rest of the deployment. A reminder that even in the darkest moments of war, some angels walked unseen. 6 months after the mountains, Echo 7 was back stateside, working through decompression at Fort Bragg. 17 missions had passed without major incident, their confidence buoyed by the quiet belief that somewhere out there, professionals like their phantom Overwatch still kept watch. Mercer was in the admin office, buried in after-action summaries, when Brooks knocked lightly on the frame. "Sir, got a minute?" Behind her stood the rest of the team, faces lit with an odd mix of excitement and disbelief. "What's going on?" Mercer asked. Vega stepped forward, holding out a tablet. "Sir, you need to see this." The headline read, "Mysterious Donation Fund to Open New Veterans Treatment Center." Below was a photo from a groundbreaking ceremony for a state-of-the-art facility dedicated to treating PTSD and traumatic brain injuries in special operations veterans. Mercer scanned the article, funded by an anonymous foundation, filtered through layers of legal fronts to conceal the donor's identity. The sum was massive, enough to build, equip, and run the center for at least 5 years. "Look at the address," Brooks said, tapping a buried detail in the third paragraph. The land had been purchased from a private owner in Silver Creek. The previous owner, listed only as H-Boss Private Citizen, recognition hit Mercer like a gut punch. "She's funding this gets better," Vega said, flipping to another tab. "We did some digging. That foundation's been quietly donating to veteran causes for 3 years. Prosthetics research, family assistance programs, housing initiatives for wounded warriors." The list went on. The sheer scale was staggering. Millions had been funneled toward causes that gave soldiers returning from the front lines a fighting chance at normally, all hidden behind a web of shell foundations and legal fronts designed for absolute anonymity. How does a ghost sniper bankroll something like this? Mercer murmured. Brooks had already pulled up another lead. Private military contractor achieves record success rate. The article was vague, deliberately so. No company name, no listed personnel. Just cold stats showing an unmatched success rate in some of the world's most dangerous environments. Executive protection, extraction routes for humanitarian workers, overwatch for diplomatic teams. Vega read aloud. Private sector pays big for this kind of skill. It was becoming clear Harper Voss hadn't vanished after leaving the military. She'd adapted, found a way to keep serving but on her own terms, building the means to take care of others carrying the same scars. There's more, Brooks said quietly, opening one last file. Memorial Fund for the 3 soldiers killed in Afghanistan. 2019 Operation Silent Thunder. It provided educational scholarships to the children of fallen Special Operations troops. Established and bankrolled by the same foundation, run through the same legal channels that kept its founder's identity buried. Mercer stared at the screen, the final pieces clicking together. The op that had ended Harper's official career had also taken 3 lives. Instead of walking away, she'd chosen to honor them while still protecting others in the shadows. Sir, Vega said, stepping forward with something in his hands. One more thing. It was the Viper patch Mercer had found in the mountains, now framed beside a sheet of plain white paper, handwritten in neat, deliberate strokes. For Echo 7 Alpha, heroism isn't about medals or recognition. It's about standing in the gap when others can't. Doing what's right simply because it's right, not because anyone will ever know. In the mountains, you reminded me why the mission matters. Thank you. Mercer read it twice. This was likely as close as they'd ever get to meeting her face to face. Think she's still out there? Brooks asked. Mercer's eyes stayed on the patch somewhere, probably saving lives right now. They stood together in a rare, comfortable silence, letting the truth settle that their guardian angel had never stopped guarding. She just found new ways, new methods to shield those who couldn't shield themselves. That night, Mercer typed one last message into the same untraceable void. Message received and understood. Echo 7 will carry on the mission. Thank you for showing us what service really means. There was no reply. He hadn't expected one, but deep down he knew the words had reached her. Somewhere in the darkness between worlds, legends still moved quietly, changing the course of nights with calm precision and unshakable resolve. Do you believe one person can alter the fate of an entire night through sheer skill and determination? Share the story and tell me, have you ever met a Harper Voss in real?